Alright, you cum swapping hooligans. Let's get right into it. I'm gonna show you guys how to stagger like a fucking lunatic. So let's get right into it. What is a stagger? So basically what a stagger is when you go from one string to another. You basically interrupt the string. Something the stagger will be like, you go this and I'll do something like this, whatever, right? Or do this, go into a grab, or do this and then go into that, or do this, a poke. Like, it's just not completing the string. Instead of doing this all the time, just doing something else, whatever, right? So that is a stagger. Now I'm gonna show you guys staggering 101. The first thing you need to do is the old dirty bastard. What is the old dirty bastard? It's when you do one string, or not one string, one move, and you go into a grab. This is how you implement your grab game. It's doing one or this and going in for a grab. It's gonna throw your opponent off completely. Instead of you just always doing this shit right here, just doing one and then going in for a grab. And then, you know, if you're conditioning your opponent for the old dirty bastard, 1, 2, and then you go in for the grab. So there's that. So now the next thing that's gonna really complement the old dirty bastard is the one-eyed hooker named Steve. What is the one-eyed hooker named Steve? Alright, the one-eyed hooker named Steve is when you do a stagger and then you block and bait your opponent to poke you. In this situation, a lot of people just go into their pokes. They just go into their pokes, or if they have a fast mid, you know, they're blessed and they'll start hitting you with mids. But for the most part, a lot of players, they'll poke you so they can interrupt you. That is their fastest button, their fucking pokes, right? So what you do is you throw this, wait for your opponent to poke you, and then you grab them. How does this look like? Let's say I did that, right? And I'm gonna make Kano do what he does best. Oh, look at that little shit. See, like Kano? For Kano, it's literally impossible to grab him. You saw the reversal? There you go. Well, Kano, he gets away with that shit. But let's not do that again. That's a terrible idea. So what you basically do is that you bait your opponent to poke you, and then you can grab them. Or another thing that you can do, if you yourself have a fast mid, you... Sorry. Jesus Christ. What is going on? Go into your fastest mid. Jesus Christ, why did it take me so long? That is one thing you can do. And you make your opponent guess. Is he going to grab me? Is he going to poke me? So now every time you do the old dirty bastard, you know, your opponent, they're going to start hesitating. Like, oh man, should I try to poke him? Or should I go into my mids? You know, it's like... They're going to start hesitating because, you know, they're going to start losing 14%. They're going to start getting hit with fucking combos and stuff, right? So that is one thing to do. They complement each other really, really well. The old dirty bastard, the one-eyed hooker named Steve. Next, if you really want to fuck up your opponent, is the Murray cameraman. Now, what the fuck is the Murray cameraman? Is when you go from one string. This is what you do. You find a good stagger, right? A good stagger, you know, you find one, right? This is good, right? And you hold check them. That's what you're basically doing. You hold check and say, hold up, let me go into a different string that is oppressing as fuck. For example, like, I'll do this, and then boom, go into that. I'll do this, start mixing my opponent up. But probably the most oppressing string for a lot of characters, that's something that's just universal, are your highs. So I'll do this, and I'll start getting my high game going. And highs are probably the best staggers in the game, to be honest. Because some leave you plus, and some you're just like -1 or minus nothing. And they're just really good. For example, Shang, I could do this, be +1, and it's like, grab. Do something like that, or boom, 1, 2, grab. Or boom, 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 and just start staggering the shit out of your opponent. The problem with the Murray cameraman is that you can get poked out, but that's when you need to bring in, you know, Steve, you know what I'm saying, with a one-eyed hooker named Steve into the mix. So you do this, and then you bait it, and then you start pimping them from right there. So your opponent doesn't know if you're gonna fucking bait them, doesn't know if you're gonna complete the string. Or you can do everything that I told you off of the first hit, and then go into the second hit, and then you get your grab game going, or 1, 2, block, or whatever. But here's the thing, I want to talk about numbers really quick. Now, what makes a good stagger? To me, the numbers that if your opponent blocks, what you should be seeing is honestly anything that's like -7. I want to say anything that's -7, anything that's like either plus 0 or like 4 and down is considered, in my opinion, a really fucking good stagger. Now, like 8 and up it's ugly. It gets ugly, but there are certain strings that I get away with. Like if it's like -8 or 9. I'll probably just do the old dirty bastard and go in for a grab or whatever else it is, like something really quick. Like for example, like with Shang, he's -9. On paper, he told me if you're gonna do something that's -9 going for a grab, it's not a good idea. But there's certain exceptions. I'll do something like this, and then boom, and then I'll go into like something like this, and then go into that mid, or do that, or do a down 4, or do this and go in for a sweep, something like that. So if you're like super minus like 8 or above, it sometimes will be okay to do that if you're conditioning your opponent for that overhead. If you're conditioning your opponent for that low, it's okay to do that. But if it's anything that's 8 and up, look, you just need to do the old dirty bastard and get your grab game going. That's it. You shouldn't be you shouldn't be doing this. You should not be doing that. That is a huge no-no. Even this right here is considered a no-no, but if you space your opponent out, like if you step back and then do it, you should be fine. But it is a risk. You need to know about this. It's always a risk to do a stagger. That's why you got to play it right. The more options you give your character, the better shit will be. So that's another thing to definitely look out for. Another thing that I like to do in my staggers, me personally, is adding a short hop to it. Again, you can get poked out, you definitely can, but if you start playing your shit right, you can start doing stuff like this and going in for an overhead. Now when your opponent doesn't know if you're gonna fucking start completing the string, like the second hit goes into a low, and then you can boom go into an overhead and just completely throw your opponent off. And then sometimes you can make them fucking start trying to uppercut you because they think you're gonna short hop, and then you don't, and then you can just start pimping them from right there. So that's when you do something like this, step back, and then get the fucking whiff. So there's lots of things you can do. You could also start enforcing your opponent off of staggers, forcing a whiff. Like Scorpion players, they'll do one move, step back, and then they'll fucking get you, which is really, really good to do. So you should definitely add that to your character. That is definitely one thing. So now I want to get into more of I want to say the juicy stuff and the shit that that I really want to talk about, and that is interrupting your opponent with certain shit, setting them up and testing your opponent. Because I honestly think you should, when you're staggering somebody, you should definitely take your health bar in consideration. If you have a lot of health bar, yeah, you know what, fucking challenge your opponent. If you're getting down, it's just best to play it off safe. So what I mean by this is this right here. So one good example I want to show you. Let's say I've been doing certain strings and I'm trying to stagger, but Kano has just been throwing his fucking annoying ass mid. He's just been saying, hold on. He's just been saying fuck you and just doing this shit all fucking day to you, right? So one thing that you're gonna want to do is this right here. So let's say I'll do this. Actually, let me show you this stagger, and then I'll go into this right here, and then sorry, let me do that one more time. What is going on? You see that right there? What is going on right here? Whoa. Whoa, what is that? Right there I'll get hit. You can start literally baiting your opponent. If you see your opponent's throwing mids at you during your staggers, it's it happens, if they have a fast mid, might as well use it. But if you start playing your numbers right, you could actually interrupt your opponent, from that. For example, Shang, both of his main mids, right, are -2. This comes out in 8 frames. This comes out in 7. So one thing you could do is this, and then go into a poke. That is one thing that you can do. Good players do this. A lot of good players do this. I need to start doing this more, because I get super greedy when I play. But this is one thing you can definitely do. For example, sorry, like, there's nothing. Oh my god, why is the block stun so bad? Right? Like, what is Kano in this situation gonna do? Like, there's really nothing he can do. He doesn't have a button other than a poke, and that's the worst thing that could happen to you. So if your opponent has like slow buttons, like, you can start doing shit like this to, you know, punk your opponent. Another thing you can do, you can do stuff like this, right? Boom. Ah, sorry. Right? And just start enforcing this, right? And instead of just doing a poke, you can do, boom, a poke into a special move just to throw him off completely. But, you know, it all depends on the character and how comfortable you feel doing that. So, you know, in certain situations, the only thing your opponent could really do is poke you back because they don't have fast buttons. Or they could step back or whatever. But for the most part, you know, you can do that to, you know, test your opponent, but at the same time it could definitely backfire on you. You know, you can get grabbed out, you can get spaced out. But that is one thing that I feel like you should definitely add to your repertoire, is challenging your opponent with pokes during your strings, like boom and then boom, going into a poke, and then, you know, playing it right. You could do this, a poke, play it right and smarter, boom, and then you'll go into a special move. So, you know, just adding that element of surprise to your opponent. He just doesn't know what's going to happen. You know, treating staggers like a mix-up is always really good. And just, you know, instead of this move just being this, or being this, or being, you know, fucking, you know, combo starter, it could be this into grab. It could be this into a crushing blow, possibly. It could be this into a mix. It could be this, and then start spacing. There's so many options, and not off of just one hit. You could do 1, 2, and then going for the jump in, 1, 2, and then there's so many options off of staggers, and it just makes your opponent, your character, feel like he's more of a fucking threat than just doing this all fucking day, you know. So definitely add that to your character. Find out what are your character's good staggers. Like I said again, anything below -7 is good, but you could do the old dirty bastard moves that are like -7, -8, -9. But they are there. If you're playing against someone that's really good, you can definitely get punished. So that's what you need to do. Again, the one-eye hooker named Steve, bait that motherfucker, and then there's that. And also doing your pokes in between is good. It's something I personally need to get better at. But yeah, there's that. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hallelujah, holla back. Check you bastards later. Deuces.